Great to have your company this morning, where we're wondering how much use of AI we can get away with.
Yeah, and what better person to ask than our head of technical, Skip, big brother, who knows all the happenings in this sphere. So, Skip, thank you for joining us this morning. Let's talk about AI and things like ChatGPT. And what do you think is some of the main concerns around using this regularly or using it at all?
Well, there's a lot of stuff known about AI where it hallucinates and does random things. So
Wait, what?
Hang on a minute.
It's an actual term, hallucination of AI. What happens is the learning model gets a little bit loopy and starts offering really wacky advice. So cast your mind back years ago. Microsoft tried a chatbot, and the chatbot was made public, and everyone's like, this is really cool. And then after 24 hours, it started spouting Nazi literature.
What?
Oh, that's dangerous.
They shut it down straight away. And what they found is that actually the learning language model was trying to learn from what people were teaching it, and people cottoned onto this. And so they started teaching it Nazi literature.
What?
It was crazy. So
Wow.
a lot of language models are way more advanced now. So the AI models are way, way better, but it still does weird things. Like it says to you, 1 + 1 = 3. And you go, I'm sorry, but let me just correct you. It actually equals 2. And it's like, oh, yes, you're right. Yes, I'm sorry. It is 2. And what they've found, the researchers are finding that AI is actually doing more to be complementary to you than to actually solve problems.
To play to your ego so that
Yes.
you feel smart by correcting it. That is
Yeah.
so bizarre.
So, I mean, it's early days for AI. And in fact, it's accelerating and getting more impressive week by week now. It's so
Yeah.
incredible. So things are getting a lot better. But one of the challenges we've got with AI is that as it gets better, it's becoming harder to distinguish whether what's true and what's fake. And so what we're seeing online is lots of videos that are like, I'm standing in front of Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Iranians have bombed Sydney Harbour Bridge. And I've actually seen that video and it looks pretty impressive. And you're like, well, what is actually true or not now? You're actually starting to get to a point where things are getting really tricky to spot.
I can't remember who we were having this conversation with, but recently we were talking about being in like a post-truth society where the truth is even more harder to find depending on where you are.
Exactly. And the challenge with AI is it's so cheap and quick to be able to spin out complementary videos that support these other videos. And so what you see overseas, like we've heard talk about the Russian government interfering with American elections with AI and stuff like that, you just create so much content that all of a sudden you feel like, well, actually this does feel like the truth. And what we're seeing now is we're going to see a lot more of that stuff coming in, especially with the conflict in the Middle East and the conflict in the Ukraine, where you're going to see these really fantastical stories and you're going to have to stop and think, hang on, is this actually true or is it not? Should I take it at face value? And I think this really speaks into our mindset of confirmation bias. If I believe something and I see something that supports that belief, I'm going to just immediately go, yep, it's fine.
I tell you, the question that I started to learn to ask myself was, do I want this to be true?
Right.
Because especially when it comes to, dare I invoke the P word, politics, we've all got our particular colors that we might go with one way or the other. And often if you're in, say, Team Red or Team Blue, and you see a story about, the other team have done something terrible, you're generally more inclined to be like, yeah, those other guys, that sounds like the kind of thing they would do. And it makes you prime bait for that kind of AI-based news story you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that you might look at something and go, yeah, this really affirms what I believe. It's time to sort of step back and go, let me just objectively think about this. Is this actually true or not? And you can see things like, at the AI video, there may be a few things like someone's got an extra finger here, or, the crowd in the background just don't look like they're interacting with the scene, or there's, the hair looks weird. So there's all sort of things. Or, as I found out the other night, the person speaking is an actual Yeti. So there's a guy in New Zealand that's actually done this really cool AI video that's a Kiwi Yeti, and he tells all these jokes. And the video looks incredible. Like, it's just so hard to tell.
Okay, so when it comes to figuring out what's fact and fiction, is there ways that you can make sure that, let's say you're on a news site, to make sure that that news site is like verified? And do these outlets actually have law and legislation in place to make sure that their images are not affected by any AI?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because the AI thing is still a little bit nefarious when it comes to broadcasters, news outlets, and especially for podcasters and videographers and that sort of stuff. So Yeah, there is some basic laws in New Zealand, for example, that, news articles have to be true and accurate, and you can query those and question those. I think you do have to question everything that comes through, because even the big news organizations get it wrong sometimes here and there. There is a lot of work. We were in the States at a conference for broadcasters, and there's a lot of work around trying to identify fake video and how to build that trust level with people. The strange thing is they're using AI to spot AI at the moment. So
Spider-Man meme. You're the AI. You're the AI. You're the AI.
Well, it
Exactly.
might be better at it than we are.
Well, they are. And there's certain things like ChatGPT are introducing things into their text, which actually puts watermarking. You don't see it, but you can actually do a query on a document and say, has this been generated by AI? And you can pick up those watermarks.
I'd also like to talk about the benefits, how you can safely use it to perhaps maximize what you're doing in your workspace.
Yeah, we'd use it a lot. Like it's actually really cool. As a tool to be able to help you do more, it's incredible. Like for us quickly doing programming, I can write some code. It might take me an hour to do it. If I use AI, it'll drop that time down to like 5-10 minutes. It is so much more efficient than doing stuff like that.
But how accessible is that really? Because I've heard people talk about this before and using AI to do the work for you, but surely you still need some kind of like a basic knowledge to know if the work that, say, AI has created on your behalf is actually any good, right?
So that's a really good question. And I'm going to tell you about a product called Notebook LM from Google. It is unbelievable. It blew my mind when I first saw it. The idea is you open up this AI and you drop documents or video or sound or something into it, and it analyzes it, and then it allows you to start asking it questions about the document. So take, for example, we had a radio spectrum management boring document, 65 pages about relicensing for radio. Exactly. And I had to get my head around it really quickly. So I dropped it into this tool, and then it has this feature called Generate a Podcast.
What?
Yeah. This is the coolest thing ever. So it goes away, it reads the document, and it generates a podcast of two people talking to each other.
No.
And it generated a 25-minute podcast for me to listen to so that I could actually take on board what this document is about. And it was actually pretty accurate. Now, here's the thing that blew me away. I could join the podcast live as it was playing. So I push a button and they go, oh, hey, a guest has joined us. What would you like to say? And
What?
I, with my voice, said, what are the ramifications for Rhema Media in this document? And they go, that's a great question. Let's unpack that. Rhema Media is listed under the Schedule 7, blah, blah, blah. And it just unpacked a whole realm of information for me. I'm like, what is
Wow.
going on? This is cool.
So you could like basically get something you're grappling to get your head around. Let's say you're a teacher or you're a student and there's this whole topic, a whole textbook load of information. Pop it in. It'll generate a short, brief podcast to explain it to you, and you can ask it questions.
Yes.
That is
Wow.
incredible. My question, though, quickly, how do you know that what it's generated is accurate?
That's what I want to know.
Now, that is a very, very valid question. And I think part of it is that the tools are great to be able to help you get up to speed with things, but you still have to use your brain. You still have to look at the outcome. I mean, we're building an AI policy here for Rhema Media to use AI in use. One of the key tenets of that is don't just trust AI explicitly. Check for yourself, validate for yourself. And so what we did with this radio spectrum document is we're like, hey, that's an interesting point. I'm going to go to the document and it gives you a reference to point back to where it was. I'm going to read this myself to understand it. And so then you're like, okay, yeah, that's accurate. That's exactly what they say. But double check everything.
So in some ways, let's say you're asking AI for a specific Bible verse and it spits something out to you. You go and check it in your hard copy and go, oh, yes, that is correct.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bible verses are classic. Take them out of context, right? Just take one line of a Bible chapter and it's like perfect for me, but the context is quite different. So, yeah, you definitely want to double check those sort of things.
What about the opportunity then to, say, interview Bible characters? Like we talk about, say, your Davids and Solomons and maybe the Apostle Paul. We've got enough information from these guys maybe in Scripture to create something of like an AI personality template. Is this the kind of thing where maybe we could basically do an interview with the Apostle Paul?
So that is a really cool question, and I can say that I know of a project in Australia where they've taken the works of Charles Spurgeon, all of his works, chucked it into an AI bot model, and now you can have a conversation with Charles Spurgeon. One-on-one, asking questions about life, morality, or anything, and get answers based on what his writings would have indicated was the way he was leaning. Now, this isn't made public because they're like, this could get really hairy. I think again about that idea of the Microsoft bot that got taught about the Nazis.
Yeah.
So they're still working on that. But it's kind of a cool concept, right? Being able to ask questions of Solomon, for example. How cool would that be?
I think it's really cool in terms of a creative, like imaginative space where you could like have some really deep philosophical conversations. But I think also ultimately when it comes to defining truth and what you understand, especially in your faith walk, ultimately that comes down to checking everything with the word, right? And asking the Holy Spirit for discernment. I can imagine though, with some practical, applications and possibilities, there'd be a lot of ways you can use AI in, let's say, the ministry space, like for crafting sermons and crafting teaching guides and home group guides. What are the things you're seeing with that, Skip?
Yeah, so there is an actual product that's available now to churches. I think it's through a company called Subsplash, the people that do our Word for Today app. They have a product where you can take your video sermon, put it into AI, and it will generate Bible study guides for your discipleship groups. It will give you frequently asked questions. It will even generate social media snippets of key points of your sermon so you can publish that in your social media sphere. So that is actually really cool because, say for me, our church is a small church. We don't have a lot of people that's going to be able to do all that work. I can use these tools to sort of add to the Sunday morning experience and move that message into the week. So
that's amazing, man. I mean, I can see already the applications for, say, itinerant speakers as well. When you're going from church to church, you're like, all right, here's my message. Make it 25% more Presbyterian. Skip, thanks for joining us for this Tech Tuesday.
all good.
Amazing. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss the next video.
We'll see you in the next one.